Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. It's about 5 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a nice warm day relative to yesterday when it was about -2 Fahrenheit. That would put it at about -20 centigrade, with it dipping down to around about -10 Fahrenheit at night, and with a wind chill making it down about -25, 26. That's about -30 centigrade. So it has been pretty freaking cold. Actually the coldest that we've had in a few years here in Maine, which was a surprising change. I guess we have had a few very mild winters. Up till now, it has actually been a very mild winter here. This is not due to last for a heck of a long time, but who knows what's going to happen after next week. I suppose the plus side of a cold snap like this is that maybe there'll be a few less ticks around here. I don't worry too much about ticks in this yard here, or at least this side of this yard. This side's another matter. Do get a few ticks in the brush there, but out there is where they all come from. And my other yards have quite a bit of sort of undergrowth nearby, so there's ticks all over the place in those. But I've certainly seen some big fat turkeys here this week, so they've been growing fat on the ticks that we did have anyway. With this cold weather, the bees have had to really consolidate and hunker down, keep bundled up together and effectively shivering their bodies to generate heat. And that's of course why they store so much honey. The bees have to burn up a lot of honey to keep their bodies going, just like we have to burn through a lot of heating oil. They get through an awful lot of honey. Let's have a quick walk around the area here. There's certainly some encouraging signs. People often worry about seeing dead bees in front of the hive. To me, this is a fantastic sight. We really want to see dead bees in front of the hives whenever we get a bit of break in the weather. This snow fell about 3 days ago. It was warm for a little while, and slightly warmer for a little while, and then got really cold. But in order for bees to be able to come out of the hive and die in the snow, they have to have a warm cluster in there in order to be able to physically move out. So this is a sign that we have a good warm cluster in the hive. Likewise here, we've got bees in these hives here, and look at the ice forming as the water vapor comes out of the hive here. So that's a sign that the hives are alive too. Freezing condensation. I see signs that there's a critter underneath here. No distinct signs of bees here, but yeah, there's a few dead bees in front. They could be coming from the other hives, but I'd take that as a good sign. There was a lot more flying and cleaning activity in this hive, so that's not bad. That hive is still alive. The entrance is blocked up on the top here. Hopefully we've got some activity down below. Oh, we've got a nice little cave here. Dead bees around. Just because you don't see dead bees immediately in front of the hive does not mean that they're dead. It could just mean that they're just well tucked up and not moving at all. Can also mean a smaller cluster, so not quite as active. The other possibility. But this hive is certainly alive, because we're certainly seeing dead bees here. And again, look at that moisture coming out of the bottom entrance. Is not really coming out of the top entrance yet. The ice crystals at the entrance of the hive. Good sign. So all the bees are tucked up nicely for the winter here. And we just have to keep our fingers crossed. There's not much we can do right now. There's certainly no danger of them having run out of food yet. The hives were good and heavy going into the winter. And even though that I may have been a little bit concerned about in terms of their total amount of food in there, generally speaking, what's in there is certainly going to last them for another month or so at very least. So I have no worries about bees starving yet. Now, given that it was a warmer winter so far, the current temperatures accepted, they could start to have reared brood a little earlier than normal. Some parts of the country, bees are rearing brood very early. Normally, I would say around here, I would expect to see my first brood in January. And so far, January's been chilly, so I wouldn't expect them to have initiated brood rearing now. The question will be if they initiated brood rearing before this time. All these things can lead to a much more rapid consumption of food in the winter time. So if the winter does stay relatively mild and we do get brood rearing, we're likely to see food consumption go up. But probably not much different from last year or the year before, where we did have a mild winter and the bees didn't really use an enormous amount of food. I think it also depends on the race of bee, your particular location, and how well your hives are insulated and drafts excluded, that sort of thing. The colder the bees are, the more they have to use food. These bees are pretty nicely wrapped up, so they're not going to lose a lot of heat that way. And that means they're not going to burn through that much food. Even last year when I had 5-frame nukes running, I had those bees coming through the winter with a full 1.5 frames of honey in the hives, and that they only went in with 5 frames. So they still had 30% of their honey left at the end of the winter time. So we just have to wait and see right now. If you're wondering why these hives aren't insulated, it's because they're made of styrofoam. So in effect, they've got 2 inches of insulation on them already. Now here's a sign that I've got a shrew. Shrews can get in behind that 1/2-inch wire mesh, but you can see there's some half-eaten bees in the snow here, So I've got a shrew going in there, getting to the bottom of the cluster, picking off bees, chewing them in half. They usually eat half the bee, and they keep on coming in and out. So shrews, unlike mice, they don't make a nest in the hive. They come in and out each day. That's the only one I'm seeing signs of an issue. My hives do give up the odd bee to shrews in this rural environment. That's part of life in the countryside. Another shrew. But there's live bees here too, so despite the fact that there's shrews coming in and out, this hive has got live bees in it, and plenty of them, as does this one. And if the shrew tries to do that on a warm day, the shrew's going to end up having a bad day itself, and it may end up getting killed. So far so good. It's very early in the winter to say how things are going, but so far all I can say is that I haven't seen anything tip over the hive. The lids have stayed on the hive. There are signs that bees are alive, and that's a good thing. There's absolutely no reason to open up your hive unless you have a strong hunch and strong confirmation that they're short of food in the hive. And to do that, you have to hive. Now, right now, I've not got any gloves on, and these hives will be frozen solid to the ground. I've not brought a crowbar with me. But if I wanted to heft those hives, I'd just take a crowbar, pry up the hive, and feel the weight of it. And just by tipping it back an inch, that's all we need to do, and you can get a good feel as to whether the colony is heavy or light. If it's pretty heavy, you know you've got plenty of honey in there, and you can work on the assumption that the bees are still in touch with the food at this time of year. A little later on, when the temperature is a little bit more forgiving of opening up a hive, then you can have a look in to see if you're on a borderline as to whether you feel there's enough food in there or not. And you can also check to see how well placed it is. So sometimes the cluster is in a corner and the food's on the other side of the hive. So on those occasions, supplemental feeding can be quite helpful. But generally speaking, the best bet at this time of year is to leave your bees alone. You've done what you can. You now have to hold back and wait and rely on the good practices you put in place in the fall. Once we start getting weather in the 40s and the 50s, then things start to change. So right now, I'm just looking at old videos, cleaning up the barn, doing some editing, getting ready to launch Beekeeping 24/7, which may be as early as today or tomorrow. So watch this space. Anyway, this is getting cold. My hand holding the camera right now has no glove on. So I'm going to go back in, have a warm cup of coffee, and get ready for my next jobs. I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. See you next time.